God does give us help. He gives us the Holy Spirit. We know that by the Spirit, we are brought to faith and justification. And we know that by the Spirit, we will be brought to sanctification and glorious resurrection. He promises that He's going to work on us day in and day out. If you feel that you are struggling in forgiveness, you're struggling in patience, you're struggling in self-control, you're struggling in the things that bring about peace between one another, don't fret. God promises that He's going to work on us day in and day out. So submit yourself to Him and His ways. Battle sin, because that's what He promises, that He will help you battle sin. Be disciplined to live righteously, because He promises that He will empower us to live righteously. That's what He promises to us, and that's what we see actually here at the end here, is we see that Jesus gives them help as well. Jesus gives them help. He says this, and when He had said this, He breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit." He tells them, receive the Holy Spirit. Now, there's a couple different opinions on what exactly this means. So, some people say He gave them the full Holy Spirit permanently right then and there. And that's a way to think about it, I guess. Except, they did receive the Spirit on Pentecost. So, what people have said, if you angle toward they received the Holy Spirit at this moment, most people say, okay, they received the Holy Spirit, but it was a temporary receiving the Holy Spirit, much like people in the Old Testament or some other people have received the Holy Spirit for a time. And then on the day of Pentecost, they received it fully, and that's when they started to take the Holy Spirit to the churches as they were going out from Jerusalem, and then eventually now everybody has the Holy Spirit at the moment of faith. Or what you can also, I guess, have an opinion about is that they didn't receive the Spirit in the sense of the Holy Spirit came upon them, but they received a promise for the Spirit which God gave to them at the day of Pentecost. Either way, whatever your opinion is on that, we know that either it was a promise that they would receive the Holy Spirit, or they were given the Holy Spirit in that moment only to receive it permanently later. But we know that now everyone has, at the moment of faith, the Spirit of Christ. And we know that the Spirit brings peace. We know that the Spirit brings peace. And this is what I think is important to think about. As Jesus brought peace to them, we also know that the Spirit will continue to give us peace. I think the Spirit gives us peace, pretty incredible peace, to the point that we can even have peace as Christians. We can even have peace with death. That's some pretty strong peace. We can even have peace with death. That's how strong that this peace can be. I read a story recently where, or I guess I saw the clip. There's a famous pastor or a preacher right now. He's an evangelist. His name is Paul Washer, and he gave a speech at John MacArthur's funeral and or memorial service. And so he shared a story that when John MacArthur was on his deathbed, this was very recent, it was in the past year or so, when John MacArthur was on his deathbed, Paul Washer came into the room, and they were friends, and he asked him, John MacArthur, he said, "Is it well with your soul? Is it well with your soul?" Because he wanted to know, do you have the peace of Christ right now? Do you have the peace of Christ on you? Is it well with your soul? And he said that, he did say that MacArthur kind of looked a little shocked or surprised, because usually people don't talk to him like that. They kind of just assume that everything's well because he's one of the most famous preachers in the world. But he kind of was taken aback and then it kind of settled on what Paul Washer was saying, and he's like, that's thank you for asking that. That's fantastic. Yeah, let me tell you about the way that it's well with my soul right now. Here's what here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what I'm praying about. Here's what I'm reading about. He said, yeah, this moment, I'm on my deathbed, but it's well with my soul, what God is doing in my life right now. It's well with my soul, the death that is about to come to me. And I thought that was pretty incredible. That even at the moment of death, there's a peace that he found. It is well with my soul. And I don't think that the peace is just there for our death. I think the peace is there for our life as well. And when I heard that phrase, "Is it well with your soul?" I'm sure maybe in this moment you're like me. Your first reaction was, "Oh man, isn't that a beautiful song? It is well with my soul." And you know what's incredible about that song is that it even has an incredible background, an incredible history of peace. Because the man who wrote that, his name is Horatio Gates Spafford, and he wrote that in response to a tragedy. He sent his family on a boat across the Atlantic to go ahead of him. He was going to join them in a couple weeks. And when the boat set sail, it was in the middle of its journey, and a large storm came, and the large storm caused the ship to sink. Almost all of his family was killed in that tragic shipping accident. Now his wife survived. His wife survived, and their I think it was 4 children passed away. His wife survived, and they were rescued, and she was one of the ones that were rescued. And she sent a telegram or whatever they called it back then. She sent it back to her husband, and she said, I think she said something like, "Survived alone," something like that. Pretty incredibly bleak message. Now, he eventually took that journey, and when he went over the spot where his family had died and all of his children had died, it gripped him with incredible emotion. And he didn't despair in that moment. What he did was he recognized the peace of God, and he went down, and whether or not he did it right there at that moment or whether he did it when he got to where he was going, but because of that moment of that emotion hitting him, he knew that he was over the bodies of his drowned children. Because of that moment, he wrote the song, "It is well with my soul." And I think about, not only does God give us a peace before death, but God gives us a peace with life as well, to live, no matter the tragedies that happen. Because that man didn't just write that song and then go live a normal life. He actually wrote that song, and he was so committed to what he wrote that he still went ahead with living a missionary life. He and his wife had more children, and they even had another tragedy with one of their sons they had later. But they lived a life where they were missionaries to the Middle East, and they died over there. They lived a life where they had peace with life. In the midst of horrible tragedy, they had peace with life and peace with what God was calling them, how God was calling them to live. And so I think that it's only with God's peace through His Spirit that we can live on mission as we ought to live.